Welcome. We're going to talk about the value of the post-secondary data partnership. This is obviously something that started and is very near and dear to the Clearinghouse. We started it back in 2017, and in 4 years, we've had a great deal of progress for the post-secondary data partnership, and it is aligned equally to our mission and aligned to all of the values in which we're trying to push and trying to really elevate across our college campuses. Each student is equal and each student is represented in any data sets that we manage. For our roadmap today, we're going to talk about an overview of the post-secondary data partnership that we will identify as PDP. Talk about value analyses. Where are you gaining value? Where are our institutions gaining value? The highest level, we have 419 contracted institutions for the PDP, which consist of both single institutions and systems of institution. We have 10 state systems. So state systems where people either decide to sign up at their community college or four-year institutions. They do that at a statewide approach. We represent 4.1 million students across the United States, and we're in 48 states and or territories. Our most recent state to have an institution join was from Alaska. So far to date, this project has cost a total of $23 million of an investment to build this infrastructure out in such a way that allows institutions to have easy access to early momentums of your students. Our existing Tableau application, known as our secure site that contains our key performance indicators, dashboards, heard many different ways. When you log into that secure site, there are an average of 120 users that hit that on each day. When we started this project years ago, one of the key components for us was we looked at the state of college success. And the numbers that we saw around on-time completions were staggering, and we knew that there has to be a way that we, the Clearinghouse, can work on a product that would help to elevate and expedite on-time completions, at least the 150% and the 200% completions. And therefore, we knew that many of the problems across the nation was around two major components, which was around achievement gaps, where you had large achievement gaps around student populations, particularly in certain segmented demographics. Second was the student loan debt. We knew that many students acquire debt in order to earn a degree, and in many cases, students that acquire the most debt do not have the highest completions rates. And so therefore, additional student loan debt was related to longer completion types, and we, like many other organizations, were committed to the component of getting our students through education and do that in such a way that allows them the capability to do it in a lesser of a cost to the student and or families. And one way that we knew to do that was through our post-secondary data partnership project. This post-secondary data project is partnership service. Now we've made it into a service, is designed to really provide a report on student progress and success. At an institution, at a system, across a state, it's designed to create and enable our institutions, participating institutions, to have a comprehensive data set which includes their data and any other enrollment data of the student, have an easier analyses and insights, and centralized reporting, and to create visualizations to help understand and improve student outcomes. The key here is to grow student success. And we believe that the way in order to grow student success is by having the transparency so that an institution can quickly look at a student's momentum through, particularly with a focus on the first year or two of their education at the institution. A student that does not have a full academic schedule is far less likely to complete on time and far more likely to not persist at that particular institution. So having that type of information at the fingertips both at a detailed level through our analysis ready and through a more summary view, more at our benchmarking and our key performance indicator dashboards. That information becomes transparent and the institution can enact change to help and better the student experience in such a way that will enable a stronger student retention and a stronger persistence through completion. How do we do that? Through Post-Secondary Data Partnership. Many of you that are joining today, or anyone that's joining today, is joining because we're looking at this idea of helping to provide value proposition and remind our frontier set of the value propositions that the PDP brings. The PDP is focused on an interactive dashboards, which are compiled based on your data and our data from other institutions in which students attended. There's powerful filtering tools that allows institutions to really go in and zoom in on students that are receiving Pell status, or male students, or female students, or students of color, or any of the things that you're looking for a student demographic-wise that you're trying to understand. Your traditional student by age, or your untraditional, non-traditional student, which is basically taking the flip across our campuses in the United States, where there's the non-traditional is starting to have a larger number of seats than the traditional. The idea is have better reporting and have an analysis ready file where you essentially get one row per student. And then the item that has been viewed the most of the people that are looking at our service is the benchmarking data. So the idea of the benchmarking data is allowing institutions to carefully select a group of peer institutions in which they want to compare to. Hence, our product is driven and motivated by network effect, meaning the more institutions that we sign up, given we're at close to 420 institutions today, the more third parties that we sign up, given that we're at 14 third parties today, because we continue to grow these two numbers, there will be a greater need for the service, and the value of the service continues to increase as the number of participants increases. Why that's important? Many of your peers that have signed up for the PDP, like yourself, the more of your peers that sign up, you can benchmark against and start to really understand what they're doing on their university campuses and what you're doing on your college campus can be two different things, but you can see the net effect in certain components, such as an institution may decide they're going to run a first-generational summer camp for students that go to summer school. They ask that students come for a week or two on campus over the summer. You could potentially look at your results that does not run a program like that and the results of a peer institution that decides and elects to run a program for first generation students. And you could see if other things held constant, those students that attended your institution that did not attend summer camp and those institutions that attended a peer institution that did, you can see through benchmarking at a small group of subset of institutions. So you'd have to have 6 institutions or more sitting in there. You could potentially start to see patterns where your students did not progress as strongly as those that had interventions or early alerts to be able to help inform them on their students that are first generational. So our product, your service, a post-secondary data partnership, has 2 value propositions. The first is that we, like we did at the very beginning of our inception at the Clearinghouse 28 years ago, we established a service 28 years ago at the Clearinghouse that we came in, and part of our original founding leadership, coming from Sally Mae, saw that our institutions were struggling with financial aid. They were being asked to provide financial aid to to private funders. They were being asked to provide to states. They had a lot of different ad hoc requests coming in for financial aid purposes. We came in and solved that and said, send us one enrollment reporting file on a regular basis throughout the duration of the academic term, and we will report out students and student changes across the semester, meaning student goes from full-time to part-time or full-time to a where they basically withdraw from the university. We would report those to you, for you, to these individual financial aid providers, which provides a better service to the financial aid provider. It provides faster insight for the student, meaning they're not being held up for long considerations for future. And it enables the institution to redeploy those resources to focus on more functions, such as helping students gain more financial aid versus spending the time to respond to all these different respective units. Fast forward to 2016, when we were sitting in a room, we saw that the very same approach was happening to our institutions that was happening in 1993. We saw that institutions received in excess of 100 individual ad hoc requests for data, typically inside your institutional research division, where you were being asked to provide to the IPEDs, which would take 6 to 8 weeks a year to provide those reports, to provide to scholarship providers, to provide to student intervention committees and student intervention sources, and to provide to the local nursing board of certifications. And you were providing to all of these other providers, you were giving them data on the students that are attending based on a subset of students. They send you a list of 15 students or 500 students, or you're replying back with all of your students. Both of those were ad hoc requests that is taking far more time of institutional researchers, which means that they're spending less time doing research on their institution to see how can we do better and improve across campus. So we decided, part of our PDP project and part of this service to you, was that we would build a service that allowed institutions to send us 3 separate files. A cohort file, which includes the students that are entering that cohort based on each academic year, like 2019 in the fall would be one cohort, 2019 in the winter would be a second, and then 2020 spring would be a third. 2020 summer would be one. So you would basically create a listing of students that come in via cohort, and you would share that with us. You would share some basic demographic information about the student, and then in a second file, you give us the course and grade data. So we maintain all of that course and grade data, and then there's an optional financial aid file. And so the idea here is that you would provide that information into us one time, and we are a hub and spoke model where you provide to us, and then you tell us, I want all of these outside organizations to basically go in, and these other outside organizations come in and should have access to our student data at either a summary level, a student de-identified level where they can't tie back to a student name, or to a student identified level. And so in all of those cases, we can fulfill your ad hoc and scheduling data requests to outside parties, where they would come to us and tell us the format in which they want that, and we would work to fulfill those versus the institution having to do it. So this was a big value proposition. The second component was that we wanted to foster adoption using a national framework. In fact, we started out using, and we're still using, in the basis of our framework, the IHEP framework. So basically, in that respect, we've got a model where you have looking at across institutions, you're looking at all students. You look at students that were transferred in, students that were part-time, non-traditional, traditional. You're looking at all the students, and it includes a lot of different nuances to the frameworks that we originally were working off of. And the desire of these frameworks is to create an early momentum alert and student outcome completions. So monitor students that are starting to become at risk, and you can also look at it based on individual students' completion rates. We do that through early momentum has enrollment, credit completions rate, and a credit accumulation rate. So the difference between those is that some students accumulated credits while still in high school through dual enrolled and or advanced placement and or IB programs. And then other students actually have completed coursework outside your institution of higher learning and went to another peer institution and received credit for particular courses and transferred those in. The second one was student outcome completions. So you've got your outcomes, meaning did students still persist or retain at the institution? Did students earn a baccalaureate degree and or master's degree, or did they not? And then what is the non-cohort and or transfer of those particular students? Within the Higher Education Practice for Education Trust, a nonprofit peer organization of ours that does market research and does a lot of policy work and research around education, they say clearly no single strategy works everywhere. No longer just the stuff of institutional reports to various government agencies. Data are used throughout institutions to mobilize actions. Our job to help try and mobilize actions is that we went out and we partnered with outside third-party organizations, many of which you see on this list, many of which institutions that are work with us today already are members of these organizations, and they were the very source that brought you into the Postsecondary Data Partnership. Equally, we partnered with two of the regional accreditors. You couldn't pick two polar opposites from geographical locations, but we have SACS, and we're working with the southeastern part of the United States and the northwestern part of the states. We are working with the accreditors. The accreditors are using information from the Postsecondary Data Partnership to fulfill obligations from institutions in particular categories. So this is a nice removal of an additional burden on the institutions to the accreditors for certain questions that would have been otherwise asked. One thing that I always like to say is that better data helps higher education professionals develop actionable insights and make informed decisions to support student success. Again, our goal is to ensure every student has an opportunity and every student can succeed in their education journey. We are equally have signed an agreement and we are working with an extender, and we are working directly with Ellucian's student information system. Ellucian has roughly 52% of the post-secondary institutions in the United States, with nearly every community college two-year institution. And what Ellucian is doing through their Banner and Colleague applications is both Banner and Colleague works with a product inside their organization called Ellucian Ethos Platform. It is a free service for institutions that are already members of Ellucian that is a cloud-enabled environment that allows institutions to easily create a file for us in their system through an automated approach that's built in from Ellucian. And then what it allows is an easy transparency and an easy transition and transport from the Ellucian system to us. The good news is that Ellucian doesn't even have access to the data that resides inside Ethos. So the data is in a very tightly secured environment. It is created and then it is sent over to us for processing. And that it all happens electronically with clear transparency between where is the file at which point and how is that working. So we are working with this. This went live last week, so we are up and running on it. We've been communicating about this since November. It is yet another opportunity for value proposition, and it allows institutions and systems that have been saying for some time that you're concerned about the laborious task of creating a file and mapping over your necessary requirements. You can go out and work with Ellucian directly, and they will tell you which of your data elements are in question. And I think they will take those and run those through and make that process easier to identify where there are problems and gaps in your data sets. One of the responses in the quotes that we received was, when I heard about this project, my first response was hallelujah. This particularly, the idea with this was that as we talked to our end users, they said to us that they're concerned both at the performing level, meaning an individual performer that's working through data, and or all the way up through provost. Everyone's concern to us was that people are spending too long dissecting data and too little time actually coming up with proposals to change the outcomes of what they're seeing in the data sets. In order to accomplish all of this, one of the things that we're working off of is giving you access to all of these visuals today. And so basically you've got your enrollment, you've got your gateway course completions, that you can actually take those and differentiate those between an A, B, C, D, or a pass and or not pass. And this particular model is to their help with kind of those first year, academic year kind of components that you can see how are they doing and progressing through those introductory level courses. Then you've got your credit accumulation and your credit completion, which looks at kind of the historical prior to the student's enrollment in the institution and or outside commitments. And then it looks at secondary, your credit completion ratio and how much you've earned in each of the students in each cohort. After year one, people start to really focus on retention and persistence, and then your term-to-term differences. And then during years 2nd through 8th, people look at transfers and start to understand those. We are actively working on a project to be able to report out intra-transfers, separate and independent of external. Meaning if a student enrolled at an institution, and that institution is a 2-year or 4-year institution in a state, a specific state, and they transfer to another institution in that same state that may be 25 minutes away, we were calculating that as if it was a transfer, even if it was inside the same system, and we are in the process of adjusting it and giving our institutions the flexibility to get a report that is based out of your institution and or inside your system versus being outside of your system. And we've got our notorious, our wonderful, actually, not notorious, our wonderful outcomes which kind of showcase our proportion of students completing a credential in a cohort or at another institution. The good thing is that it's an expansion onto our existing outcomes that we've historically always given you. Another quote that comes to mind is really looking at better decision making, and that institution is suggesting they cannot afford not to make a bad decision. So you cannot afford to make a bad decision across a campus. And so therefore, what you're trying to do is to get all of the data sets in a quick fashion so that you can make a data-driven decision, and then you can actually make sure that the success is there and build programs to monitor that success. In terms of the system itself, if you're new to this system, what you would do is, there may be several things you're looking at it from. One of which you can get the files over to the clearinghouse very easily from your partnerships with Ellucian, and or if you're not using Ellucian, we've built an API that's generic enough that would work with your SIS to get a file over. That was kind of what we've been working on the last few months. I think that therefore, once you get your file in and you see your first dashboard is when you get the most excited about the product, and you've got your data inside the Tableau dashboard, which is what we used. We went forward with Tableau. And then I think from there, you can actually easily start to better understand kind of what you're looking at, what you're working with, and you can easily start to kind of navigate around in the application. While you're thinking of that, you can always share those in chat. Another quote that we have is that the retention rate is a lagging indicator, meaning that it's great that you get a retention rate, but it doesn't really provoke an institution to change anything. and that meaning it cannot help you save in an existing generation of students. It's looking kind of backward looking at students from the past without really truly understanding the current student. A great example of this would be our COVID. COVID has been one of the biggest reasons that institutions are drawn to the PDP because it allows a true collaboration of your existing product, your existing enrollment, your existing students, your existing structures. And what it allows is a very clean way to be able to understand on the back end. You can start to really see and showcase why it is that your students are leaving for different reasons around COVID. Maybe they transferred because of geographical differences, or they were a first generational student and they're lost in the complexity of and perplexity of a pandemic. It could be that they had to go to work because of their financial aid status. It could be a number of different things, but this was actually provided to us by a state system. I want to say thank you for continuing to be a customer. And then this service offering for this particular application is designed to be built for you, by you. So if there's members that attended this particular session, or you find this session later, we heavily encourage you to reach out to us and try to serve in some capacity of leadership. Help us pick what's the next things on our priority of roadmap. Help us to evaluate newer tools that we're launching. Serve on our data collection advisory committee, which consists of about 12 to 14 of your peers. So serve on one of our institutional boards around this product so that you can help to shape this particular product and be part of this solution for you, by you in the future. Any questions about this presentation and or service that I could answer for folks now?
How do we know if the API will work for our institution?
So API, we traditionally have used an FTP. So the FTP is just an older way of getting files over to us. Everybody has the ability to create an API. So if you wanted to create an API, it would work with every institution. So you don't have to be an Ellucian institution to take advantage of the API. The API is simply a transmission vehicle for us. So you could potentially go to your technology shop if you have one that would be creating that information. And what they can do with the technology shop is they could reach out to us and we will generate an API access key and a password for that key. You'll get 2 separate emails, and we can share that with you. And then someone on your shop can go in and play with giving us an API with all of your existing information that you're already giving us. So if you've got a past file and you've sent it over to us, you can basically get the same thing. You can just resubmit those types of things. You can start submitting them via an API going forward. Thank you for the question. It's available for everyone. I highly encourage you. You're probably pretty passionate about this incredible thing for you, by you, where you're building out a next generational service like this. But at the same time, we do have an opportunity. If you reach out to me or reach out to us, we can sign you up to be a member of an advisory where you would basically attend once a year a data collection advisory committee with some senior people in other organizations, and you would basically help provide feedback on the product to improve. Thank you for your time.